How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to the 5th episode of the Flying Knee KO podcast. My name is Victor Vasquez. Welcome back. I know I was supposed to have an episode out last week. I was actually not able to record an episode just because of the fact that I was really busy with work. You guys don't care about that. Just thought I'd mention it. But either way, we are back with another episode. And this time we're going to be covering Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov for UFC Fight Night at the Apex Center. I mean, these Apex main cards have been great so far the last couple of weeks. This time we have two heavyweights, and not only was obviously, it was one of the main fights to pay attention to, but there's also these other fights on the main card that just blew me away, and I cannot wait to talk about it. So hope everybody is doing well. Thank you so much for listening. And let's just get it started. I mean, let's go ahead and talk about the hottest news coming out of UFC Fight Night at the Apex Center with this segment that I like to call...
I'm here with the winner, Derek Lewis. Derek, why'd you take your pants off? My balls was hot. I understand.
Derek Lewis giving us the nice little segment called My Balls Was Hot, where we break down the hottest news coming out of this past weekend's fights. And like I mentioned, I wanted to discuss the main event, Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov. It was great competitive battle for a few rounds, probably just one round in that 5th round where Volkov actually had a chance to stand up with Curtis Blaydes. Besides that, it was all Curtis Blaydes wrestling his way through that match. I mean, he had already predicted it. He tweeted it out. He was talking about it during fight week that, it was not going to be a stand-up that people were expecting. He was just going to ragdoll his opponent, and he was able to take down Volkov multiple times throughout the fight. He just was dominating every single position he tried to get. Wasn't causing as much damage, throughout the fight, but still clearly won that fight over Volkov. You can see that Volkov was very frustrated every time he got taken down, just had no response and no defense, even though Volkov had one of the highest defensive takedown ratings in the heavyweight division. That did not stop Curtis Blaydes from dominating him all 5 rounds. 5th round, you can look and maybe give it to Volkov, as he ended up actually landing some beautiful shots, which we will discuss a little bit later. But I also want to talk about the main card overall. It was just a great night of fights, good action with, just a lot of fighters and a lot of, again, young talent. I think that's what I've appreciated the most out of these UFC main cards from the Apex Center. It's been able to highlight different fighters that we don't get to normally see on a main card. You got guys like Josh Emmett, you got Shane Burgos, you got Raquel Pennington again getting another victory. You got a lot of these great talents, and I'm not saying that Raquel Pennington's, any young talent, but again, it's just highlighting different fighters, whether they're veterans in the game like Jim Miller and Raquel Pennington, or they're just young studs like Bilal Muhammad and Lyman Good. It was just great action non-stop from those fights, and it was just, again, great job by the UFC and the matchmakers to put these guys and girls on the spotlight at the Apex Center and show off to the fans what the UFC roster has in store. Again, Curtis Blaydes getting the victory over Volkov. Now he's on a 4-fight winning streak, but again, where does that leave him? You have the number 1 contender. There is no question that Francis Ngannou is the next person to deserve a heavyweight title shot. DC and Stipe are actually going to face off. It's official in August to finish off the trilogy. DC is going to retire after this fight. If he wins the championship, he rides off into the sunset as a champion. He loses, well, he's still one of the GOATs of UFC and MMA as well. Stipe then just primarily becomes the greatest heavyweight of all time by being able to beat one of the GOATs in DC. So again, Francis has that next title shot. But now what happens to Curtis Blaydes? I mean, now he's stuck in a position where he's going to have to either get another fight, try to stay active and stay ready, or he's just going to have to wait it out. And he's going to have to wait maybe for the loser of DC and Stipe. And he's not going to fight DC because he's already going to retire. So if Stipe were to lose that heavyweight championship, then there would be the opportunity that Curtis Blaydes could get against another top contender. But that will be the real challenge for Curtis Blaydes, is that, even though he got a victory, he's still ranked behind Francis Ngannou. It didn't even matter if either Volkov or Curtis Blaydes had a crazy performance on Saturday night, neither one was going to be able to overstep Francis Ngannou and the crazy streak that he's been going. But still, very cool night of fights from this main card at the Apex Center. And so, again, congratulations to Curtis Blaydes on the victory. But now you're just going to have to determine, is he going to stay active? Or is he going to fight a fighter below him? Or is he just going to have to wait for that title shot? Should be a few interesting months for Curtis Blaydes in the heavyweight division. I also, before I move on to the next segment, I do want to shout out, since I didn't do a podcast last week, I do want to give a huge shout out to Cynthia Calvillo. She ended up being the main event against Jessica Evil Eye in the flyweight division. It was actually Calvillo's debut in the flyweight division. She ended up beating the number one contender in Jessica Eye, and it was a tough test. I mean, Jessica Eye obviously has been in the flyweight division for a while. She's kind of already used to that kind of weight, and Cynthia Calvillo was just able to out-grapple her, and it was no easy task for Cynthia Calvillo, and just round after round, she just showed that she had the skill. She was quicker, and she was just able to out-grapple Jessica Eye, was able to take her down multiple times, landed a few nice head kicks. One of them just grazed Eye, but still, a few other shots like lead jabs that stung Eye a bit. It was just overall a great performance by Cynthia Calvillo. I didn't want to kind of just gloss over it since I didn't do the podcast last week. But again, it was great to see Cynthia Calvillo she put every flyweight on notice I guess 2 Saturdays ago. And now, people are thinking, well, she beat the number one contender, so does that mean that she has to face Valentina Shevchenko? And I wouldn't go that far. I still feel she has to improve a lot from her game, as well as improve her body so that it can get used to the flyweight division. That was her first time kind of either cutting weight or moving up in weight to make that 125 limit. So if she's able to beat a few more contenders, I think for sure she'll be able to be facing off Valentina Shevchenko in no time. And to me, there's one person that can match up well next for Cynthia Calvillo, and that's the contender that just lost recently to Shevchenko, and that is Caitlin Chookagian. That would be a great matchup. And even Caitlin Chookagian, that night, I think 2 weeks ago, tweeted out, these Google eyes from Twitter mentioning, you know what? I want a piece of Cynthia Calvillo, and that would be such a fun matchup to see. So huge shout out to Cynthia Calvillo for getting her first victory of the flyweight division and making that division a lot more interesting. All right, guys, now let's move on to the next segment, which has easily become one of my favorites. It's called...
Let me bang, man. I want to do that, man. I do.
Julian Lane giving us this segment called Let Me Bang, Bro, where we choose one fight from this past Saturday's UFC fight night and decide, was this the best fight of the night? And no question. Easy choice for me this time. Usually, sometimes they're tough. Sometimes, it's a clear-cut favorite. And in this one, had to be the co-main event, Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos, featherweights in the UFC. And they just put on a heck of a performance. Oh, man. What more can I say? It was a freaking awesome fight. I mean, everybody was hyping this fight up. They were saying, okay, this one's going to be fight of the night. And usually when fans and when, people start saying, oh, this is going to be one of the fight of the night, could be a potential fight of the year, it usually doesn't live up to expectations. Well, this one did. Oh, man. First round between these two featherweights was just unreal. The way that Emmett was able to land so many bombs on Burgos. And the fact that Burgos just rolled with the punches, ate all the punches, and he kept moving forward. Even though Emmett, which is very interesting if you guys didn't see the fight, ended up hyperextending his left knee in the first minute of the fight. And that did not stop him from checking kicks with that leg, throwing calf kicks at Burgos. It was unbelievable. He ended up at the end of the fight finding out that he tore his ACL, and the guy was still throwing leg kicks with that torn ACL. There's so many crazy stuff. Torn ACLs, the freaking chin on Burgos. Unbelievable. Usually those shots that Josh Emmett throws, if you've seen the highlight, Josh Emmett knocking out Michael Johnson in one of his previous fights last year, knocking him out cold, ended up hitting the canvas. It was brutal knockout. And Burgos just kept eating those shots, and it was amazing to watch. Second round, it just raised the tension even more between those two guys. And it even made the fight even tougher to call because that round really could have gone either way. Burgos started landing some great counters, some great combinations. He attacked the left leg of Emmett, knowing that he probably knew that he had hyperextended it, just didn't know that it was torn ACL, obviously. Found that out after he got an MRI, after the fight was over, but he still kept targeting it. And Emmett would not let up. He just continued to land that right hand right on the chin of Burgos, and he did not drop. Third round came over, and you're thinking, all right, this action can't keep going, right? Well, it ended up stopping because there was a groin shot by Burgos to Emmett. And you know, once that happened, you know, it kind of slowed things down a little bit. You know, Emmett ended up taking a few minutes to relax, but as soon as the 5 minutes were up, both guys went right to the center of the cage and started trading shots. And still, to me, through 3 rounds, I was still shocked that Burgos was able to absorb that many hits to the face, to the chin. And finally, you were thinking, okay, there's one of those that punches by Emmett is going to have to drop Burgos. And it ended up happening. He ended up getting caught by one of Emmett's right hands. It's a sneaky left straight that landed on him. I even wrote it in my notes. A left straight sneaky move where he's kind of countered right there. Ended up knocking him right on his butt and just completely caught Burgos off guard. And it was even funny because you see the replay and Burgos is smiling as he falls to the canvas, but he just recuperated right back up to his feet. And at that point, he knew that he needed to finish. Burgos did. And so he ended up going out, and again, Emmett ended up catching Burgos once more with an overhand left and knocked Burgos down for the second knockdown of that third round. And again, Burgos found a way to get back to his feet. He continued to throw kicks, punches, trying to catch Emmett off guard. But, whoa, man, what a main event. If you guys have a chance, if you have ESPN Plus, check out that fight. Emmett versus Shane Burgos, potential fight of the year candidate. Even though it's not going to win, to me, fight of the year candidate, it's already won by Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Zhang Weili. That fight was amazing. A title fight, 5 rounds. But this one is a close second. And obviously, we still have 6 more months in the year of 2020. So you never know. There could be an even crazier fight. But yeah, this one was a great fight. And for sure, fight of the night in this past Saturday's UFC Fight Night. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. All right, guys, next segment is a specific segment where we like to focus on a fighter that didn't really surprise us with their performance. This segment is called...
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Nate Diaz saying that he's not surprised, and to me, the fighter that didn't surprise me with their performance was Raquel Pennington in that main card. She ended up beating Marion Renault. All 3 rounds, it was a unanimous decision. But it was still very competitive between these two ladies. That first round, it was just back and forth. Both ladies had their moments. Renault ended up landing some precise 1-2 combinations and leg kicks, while Pennington landed a nice left hook and knees to the body. That it was every time she got Renault in a tie clinch where she had her hands kind of holding the back of the head or neck of Renault, she was able to consistently land knees to the body, and it was just painful to watch. And Raquel was able to weather the storm of Renault after she's throwing those nice 1-2 combinations. And she just held on to that position of Renault against the cage. And again, just landed some nasty knee kicks. Second round, that one was a little bit more of a quick start. Again, similar to the first round. But there was another knee strike that ended up hitting the genital area of Pennington. And then ended up having to break off. Referee kind of gave Pennington 5 minutes to recover because it was a nasty hit below the belt. Renault obviously didn't do it on purpose, but Pennington took the 5 minutes to kind of relax. And then as soon as that started, the ladies went right back again, similar to Emmett and Burgos. As soon as that break ended, they went right back to the action. And again, Pennington landed 5 or 6 knees in that second round in that tie clinch. It was just bringing her so much success. And Renault just didn't have an answer for that tie clinch. She didn't protect her body, so she just kept eating those knees all the time consistently. And it just, that was probably her downfall and the reason why she ended up losing that fight. Pennington also landed a nice elbow to the head of Renault. Every time she was in that clinch, she either landed a nice little body shot with the knee or through an elbow. Third round was completely in favor of Raquel as well. She ended up landing 8 knees. That's right, I counted them. 8 knees to the body. Some slick elbows to the forehead of Renault, trying to cut her up and piece her up, try to get some blood on the face. And again, Pennington just looked like she was way more conditioned than in her previous fight. She picked up the pace, and she looked like she could continue fighting even after this fight was over. She looked like she can go championship rounds. She landed some sweet combinations that looked like they rocked Renault, but she managed to stay on her feet. So at the end, Pennington gets the unanimous decision, and it was a great night because her and her partner, Tecia Torres, both got victories. Tecia Torres actually got a victory in the prelims. So that was the fighter that I was not surprised by their performance. Raquel Pennington with another victory. She's trying to look for her way back to the top of the bantamweight division, try to get another title shot. All right, guys, next segment is the one that I like to focus in on a fighter that I was completely off guard, and I want to shine a spotlight on them. So I like to call this segment,
who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that? You know damn well who I am. Who the fuck is that?
That is Conor McGregor giving us the great line of who the F is that guy, where we, again, like to focus on one fighter that and hope that they don't get overlooked. And, you know, we've already mentioned Raquel Pennington, we've mentioned Josh Emmett and Shane Burgos, but this one fighter ended up being the second fight of the main card that I want to highlight is Belal Muhammad from the welterweight division. He ended up taking on Lyman Good, and it was, again, this actually was going to be my fight of the night, the guys that ended up banging it out. But again, Josh Emmett and Shane Burgos took that title away, but still, another great fight between Muhammad and Good. A lot of movement. Both guys very quick around the cage. Belal Muhammad tried to move it around left to right, trying to keep Good off of a specific pace. Muhammad just looked like he had a rhythm. A lot of stand switches. He just allowed him to move around, pick his targets, and he just landed a lot of different areas of Lyman Good's body. Ended up landing it to the body. Landed a lot of leg kicks as well. And he even landed a nice head kick, as well as an uppercut and a lead jab. It was just a lot of great work. Second round got a bit closer between the Good and Muhammad, but Belal just had a better footwork. He was just moving so smoothly, side to side, not staying in one spot and not staying in Lyman Good's range for too long. Good landed his biggest punches in this round. That also may have stunned Muhammad a bit, kind of wobbled him, but again, Belal Muhammad moving around, trying to keep up a quick pace to not show that he was hurt by those punches. And again, Belal Muhammad did a great job to mix things up in his offense, landing some sick body kicks that you could hear throughout, the Apex Center. And he also landed some nice 1-2 combinations. And again, right, you think, okay, these 2 rounds have been great, but can round 3 live up to this hype? And it did. It did not disappoint. Good ended up knocking down Belal after landing a huge overhand right. And again, Belal quickly got to his senses, clinched up with Lyman Good in order to catch his breath. Good knew that he needed to get a KO to win this fight if he was down 2 rounds. And he came very close with a few punches from clipping the chin of Belal Muhammad. Muhammad, again, great footwork to get around Good, not get caught in the pocket, and ended up getting KO'd. But he recovered well, ended up getting a takedown at the end of the 3rd round. And then Belal ended up surviving those final seconds and got the unanimous decision, 29-28 on all judges' scorecards. He is now on a 3-fight win streak. And it should be very interesting to see how much he moves up the welterweight rankings, because that welterweight division is no joke. There's a lot of killers in there. So I'm really interested to see who they put him up against. I may have a prediction in the last segment that we have here. And speaking of the last segment, this is, again, one where we play matchmaker. And also what I've noticed in this segment is that I've probably gotten all of my predictions wrong. But it's still fun to kind of predict who the winning fighters of last Saturday's UFC Fight Night are going to face. So this segment is actually called...
So I said I'd knock him out in the 4th round, and I knocked him out in the 4th round. You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
Mystic Mac predicting these things. So that's exactly what I'm going to try to do, is just try to predict who are next for the winners of the main card of Curtis Blaydes versus Alexander Volkov this past Saturday night. So let's start off with the fight that kicked it off last Saturday. It ended up being Roosevelt Roberts versus Jim Miller, the veteran. Roberts actually got a submission over Brock Weaver a few weeks ago, so he made a quick turnaround trying to stay active. This ended up being a catchweight fight at 160 pounds. Jim Miller is a lightweight in the 155-pound division. Roberts currently in a 10-1 record, and this is actually the 35th appearance for Jim Miller, and who's currently tied with Donald Cowboy Cerrone. It was a great few minutes, but it actually ended in the first round after a armbar submission that was landed by Jim Miller. It was great and quick work by Miller, who again, tough opponent by Roberts. He's going to be the future of either the featherweight or the lightweight division, whichever one he chooses to kind of get into. But the fight did not take long to get to the ground, and Miller is a savage on the ground as well. Miller actually ended up landing an inside leg kick that tripped Roberts, and that's what led both fighters to ended up scrambling on the canvas, and ended up leading to Miller getting top position. Roberts would actually quickly try to use his strength to push off and slip under Miller, and as soon as he did that, he kind of exposed his arms, and Jim Miller, with all the experience that he has in that cage, just transitioned to that armbar beautifully. And Roberts did really good at the beginning. He had a really good defense at first, knew to try to kind of move to a certain direction, that way his arm wouldn't get caught completely, but he tried hammer fisting Miller, and as soon as he hammer fisted, did not pay attention to his arm, and Miller just put on the pressure, and it ended up being a verbal tap as Roberts ended up just kind of telling the ref, I tap, 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 and then it was over. Jim Miller let go. He got his 14th first-round finish of his career. It's a great performance for the veteran Jim Miller, and if he makes his next appearance at the UFC, hopefully he gets another fight in 2020, he will actually get ahead of Cowboy Cerrone and have the most appearances by any fighter. And let's actually go ahead and pull up the rankings right here to see who can be next for Jim Miller. And as we have him pulled up right here, I wouldn't mind seeing him face off against like a Beneil Dariush or a Drew Dober. Again, savage division with so many guys that can potentially move up, and they could totally be future contenders and future champions. But I would not be opposed to seeing Jim Miller face off against Drew Dober. All right, next fight that we're going to focus on for the Mystic Mac segment is Belal Muhammad and Lyman Good. Belal Muhammad, as I mentioned, got the victory against Lyman Good, unanimous decision. Just outclassed Lyman Good in those first two rounds and survived that final round, but he got the victory, and he actually made it easy for me because he called out his next opponent, and he's hoping to get it, and it ends up being Santiago Ponzinibbio. Santiago Ponzinibbio, another great challenger in that welterweight division. He's, for some reason, not ranked in the welterweight division, even though he's on like a 6 or 7 fight win streak. It's unbelievable. He's been coming off of injuries, which is why we haven't seen him in a while, but I would be all for that matchup. And again, it would just be a great test for Belal to kind of see where he stands in that welterweight division. Currently, he is not ranked, but if he were to get a victory over Ponzinibbio, that would totally just skyrocket him up into that top 15 or top 10 of the welterweight division. All right, next fighter we're going to focus on is Raquel Pennington. I ended up choosing her as a fighter. I was not surprised by their performance. She just got the great win over Marion Renault. Pennington currently ranked number 6 in the bantamweight division. If she wants a fresh matchup, I wouldn't mind seeing her take on Julia Pena, who is ranked number 4 in the bantamweight division, or a rematch against Germaine Durandamy. Both fights would offer Pennington a tough challenge, and again, a victory over either one of those women would get her even closer to another title shot. She ended up losing very badly against Amanda Nunes. She actually got a title shot against her a few years ago, and it was just brutal to watch. She was just getting beat down. People, I think, at that time had also discussed why her coaches didn't just kind of step in and let the referees know, you know what, we're throwing in the towel. We don't want to see that punishment. But that was a few years ago. Raquel Pennington has been trying to improve her skills, and she still looks and is showing that she is still one of the top bantamweights in that division. So until anybody else proves otherwise, I mean, might as well just keep giving her those challenges. And I would love to see it against Germaine Durandamy or Juliana Pena. All right, moving on. We have the co-main event winner in Josh Emmett from the featherweight division. He is currently 15-2 in the UFC. Again, truly amazing fight between these two guys. Both of their stocks went up. Usually when we have a great fight like that, fight of the night, fight of the year contender, both guys are going to have a name now for the rest of the year, or whenever you see this guy's name, you're like, oh, I remember that fight they had, in 2020, Josh Emmett, Shane Burgos. And so I think even though Burgos lost, he's still going to have another great matchup, and I'll be interested to see who he faces off. But we're going to focus on Josh Emmett. And he's going to be looking for a top 5 name in the featherweight division. At the moment, all the top contenders are already in fights. You have Max Holloway facing off Alexander Volkanovski, the champion. They are going to be fighting on July 11th. I am super pumped for that fight. You have Brian Ortega facing off against the Korean Zombie. I believe that one has been verbally agreed to, if not signed, which leaves 3 specific names. You have Zabit Magomed-Sharipov, you have Yair Rodriguez, and you have Calvin Kattar. All of those are going to be exciting matchups for Emmett. I mean, Emmett again showing that he has that knockout power, and no matter if he's down, if he's losing, if he lands that bomb on you, you are going to go night-night. And so it's going to be super cool to see who they're going to match him up against. I hope he doesn't have to fight someone below him. The only downside, again, to this is the fact that Emmett ended up tearing his ACL against Burgos. So we don't know what the recovery is going to look like. Hopefully it doesn't keep him out of the cage too long, in which he loses his opportunity to fight against a top 5 guy in the featherweight division. But let's hope for a speedy recovery for Josh Emmett. He totally deserves a great fight in that featherweight division, especially against a guy in the top 5. All right, guys, and now we're in the last part of this Mystic Max segment where we're going to decide what is next for Curtis Blaydes, who got a unanimous decision victory over Alexander Volkov. Like I mentioned before, Alexander Volkov had the highest takedown defense in heavyweight history with 83%, and Curtis Blaydes actually has the most takedowns in UFC history with 45 before coming in to this fight. And I probably boosted it up to like 55 or 60 because he ended up actually breaking the record for most takedowns in a heavyweight fight. He ended up probably landing a total of 15 takedowns. So a great performance by Curtis Blaydes. A lot of people probably complain saying that it was a boring fight because there was not much of striking. But I mean, again, when you're Curtis Blaydes and you're a beast at wrestling and that's your strength, why go towards the strength of Volkov to try to strike with him? And I'm glad he didn't do it. He stuck to his game plan, and that's what's going to get you victories, and that's what's going to get you closer to a title fight. He said he was going to ragdoll his opponent. He didn't ragdoll Volkov that much, but was able to pick him up, knock him down. At one point, he almost suplexed him on his head, but it was just great performance by Blaydes. He did land some great strikes in that second round and a nice leg kick, but as soon as he felt the pressure by Volkov, ended up changing levels and just brought him down to the floor. And the third round was no different. The 5th round was the most competitive of all of them. Volkov actually landed some good shots. He ended up clipping Curtis Blaydes with a sick head kick as Blaydes was trying to dip down for a level change. But again, Blaydes was still able to secure 2 more takedowns. And Volkov he obviously looked frustrated throughout the fight, considering that he just could not do anything. Even with his 83% takedown defense, just could not stop Curtis Blaydes from bringing him down to the canvas. The one interesting fact that I saw when watching this fight between these two heavyweights was Curtis Blaydes just looked so dang tired after the 4th round ended. He was just breathing heavy, breathing out of his mouth. So if there was one thing that he probably needed to improve on, is his cardio and his conditioning, because especially if he fights contenders again like Francis Ngannou, or if he fights Stipe Miocic, if he gets a title shot, you're gonna have to be able to last all 5 rounds, because some of these champions, that's what makes them so great, is that they're able to just condition themselves and last for such a long time. So I'm pretty sure Blaydes will have enough time to kind of prepare his body and try to work on his conditioning for the next fight he gets. And the next fight is going to be tough to decide. This one for sure. Of all the fighters that I've already gone through from the main card, this is the hardest one. Because again, his performance doesn't warrant him a title shot. There's no way you could surpass what Ngannou did. I mean, Ngannou's already on a 4-fight win streak, all KOs, all in the first round, under 2 minutes. It's just nothing you can do about it. So Blaydes is just going to have to wait on the sideline for his shot. If one of the fighters got injured, if Ngannou for some reason couldn't go, then he could clearly step in. But to me, if he wants to stay active, he's going to have to pick up another fight. And to me, there's one guy that you can throw in that conversation against Curtis Blaydes, and that is the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. That's right, the man that gives us the first segment of this podcast. My Balls Was Hot. That would be a great fight. Curtis Blaydes against Derek Lewis. Lewis is no chump. I mean, he faced off against one of the best wrestlers in the heavyweight division in DC, and obviously did get taken down, but he's probably learned so much from that fight. And I'm pretty sure he'd be willing to try to use those skills to not get taken down by Curtis Blaydes. And again, Blaydes facing off against a guy that has sick knockout power. So I would love to see that fight if Curtis Blaydes is down to stay active. And while he waits for his opportunity at a title shot, I am all for it. Book that main event, Derek Lewis versus Curtis Blaydes. All right, guys. Well, that's all the segments and all the things I wanted to talk about in this episode of the Flying Knee KO podcast. I appreciate every single one of you that listens to it. It just means the world to me that you guys are listening. So again, if you have any comments, questions, you want to reach out to me, go ahead and comment, down below on this video. Or if you want to specifically reach out to me with any questions, feel free to, email me at vicplaybyplay@gmail.com. Guys, stay safe out there. Be nice to each other. I am excited for this Saturday coming up. It's actually going to be a great main event. It's Dustin Poirier coming back. This is his first fight after the loss against Khabib Nurmagomedov last year, and he's going to be taking on the up-and-coming challenger, Dan Hooker. I mean, it's just, Dan Hooker's been on a crazy streak as well ever since he lost against Edson Barboza. But I mean, oh man, this matchup is going to be good. I love both guys. I don't know who the heck is going to win, but you better believe that next week on episode 6 of the Flying Knee KO podcast, we're going to be covering it. All right, guys, thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your week. And if you're free on Saturday, make sure to watch that Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier fight night. All right, guys, have a great one.